in our 4th International Conference on Educational Leadership and Management 2025. Before we begin, let me invite Dr. Azani bin Ismail for the dua recitation. Please welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And very good morning to all of you. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Salatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. Praise be to Allah, the Lord of the world. Peace and blessings are upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions, and for those who followed his example till the judgment day. Allahumma ya Allah, on this blessed morning, in conjunction with the 4th ICELAM, we beg you and are grateful towards you in favor of the infinite blessing to us, your humble servant, to live a safe, a prosperous life. Allahumma ya Alim, ya Wadud, we seek your blessing for the flawless progress of this event, from the beginning till the end. We seek, Ya Allah, guidance to guide clear of events that would be harmful to the progress of this event. Allahumma ja'al jam'ana hadha jam'an marhuma wa tafarruqana min ba'dihi tafarruqan ma'suma wa la taj'al Allahumma fina wa la ma'ana wa la man yatba'una shaqiyan wa la mahruma wa la matruda. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina adzaban nar. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Allahumma.
Thank you, Dr. Azani, for the dua recitation. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now continue with the Masterclass session presentation. Before we begin, let me give you a gentle reminder about the ground rules. Firstly, please ensure your mobile phones are on silent or vibration mode to avoid any disruptions during the presentation. Secondly, for those who have any questions for the presenter, you are allowed to do so during the Q&A session. And lastly, to maintain a professional atmosphere, kindly listen attentively and remain silent during the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, our Masterclass session presenter today is Mr. Sean Kilachan. Without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Sean Kilachan.
Good morning, everybody. I was hoping to share some slides. Is there anyone who can help me get the slides up here? Never mind. All right, good morning. How's everybody doing today? Okay, so before I jump in here, just to give you a brief background on what we're going to be doing today. For those of you who made it to my session yesterday, or I guess for those of you who did not make it to my session yesterday, my name's Sean. I am the CEO and founder of a tech company called EduSync, and we specialize in online language testing for schools and companies. The theme of my talk yesterday was around how, as educators, we must use AI ethically in our day-to-day. Most importantly, as it relates to assessment, but from a more general standpoint, the idea of yesterday's talk was to highlight the importance of being present as we implement these new technologies that we're seeing evolve every day. For the workshop today, I was hoping to do something a bit more interactive. So today, I'm going to go through 3 different scenarios that we faced similar issues at my company over the years, and I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to use the framework I presented yesterday to basically discuss how we would go about addressing these kinds of problems in the real world. So again, the objective here really is to take these scenarios that I'm going to present, analyze them according to the framework that I discussed yesterday, which I will summarize again today. And if any of you are willing to share with the rest of the group, we can discuss how we would go about dealing with these situations in our day-to-day. So just to reinforce the guiding principles that I discussed yesterday, the 3 pillars of ethical AI that we use at my company are the 3 you see on the screen right now: fairness, transparency, and human oversight. With these 3 things in mind, as educators, you can theoretically implement artificial intelligence into anything that you're doing. Now, I know that a lot of you have experience using some of these AI tools in your day-to-day during work. But again, as these tools evolve and as we learn about new tools that come out, the important thing is that we as educators always keep in mind these 3 concepts to make sure that we are implementing this new technology as effectively as possible. And again, just to summarize what these 3 actually mean. So fairness is specifically about the objective. Yesterday, I gave the example of an AI system that can tell the difference between simple English and bad English. I even gave an example, which is part of what we'll discuss today, around how understanding the system you're using can dictate whether the outcome is fair or not. And again, when I say fair, I mean, for example, using a system that is trained on American accents so that when someone with a different accent tries to use it, they are unfairly penalized and they lose points on their test, even though the system is at fault and the process and not the person. Transparency is the second pillar here, and this has more to do, again, with our understanding as educators of the systems that we're implementing. This also is important for the learners. For students who are using these systems, whether it's for day-to-day, writing essays with ChatGPT, or taking English exams on EduSync, it's important that the students understand why they are getting the scores that they're getting on their tests. And in order for them to understand, we as educators have to be able to explain it as well. The example I gave yesterday for this was, instead of a student taking an exam and saying, you got a 7 out of 10, a transparent system would allow us to explain to them why they got a 7 out of 10. What was it that impacted their score to dock them 3 points? And how are they able to understand it as well? Last but not least, and arguably the most important piece of, I guess, this entire world of AI, as we are continuously pressured to adopt these technologies and as they get more and more sophisticated, is human oversight. Even doing examinations at scale and evaluating thousands of tests a day, we still have a process in place for human oversight. I would argue that there's no perfect process that's been created for this, but the most important thing is that the humans are in control. Again, we've all seen Terminator, and we know how that movie ends. As soon as we give the control fully over to the machines, it's over. I'm exaggerating, but you get the idea. Now, let's dive into some of these scenarios. So the way I was hoping to do this, I'm going to present the scenario. I'm going to show you some thought-provoking questions, and I'm going to give everyone 5 minutes to internalize this and use that same framework I mentioned. fairness, transparency, and human oversight, to assess the situation. And then I'll dive into how I would approach it, and if any of you are willing to share, I would also love to hear from you how you would take the situation forward. Scenario 1, the flagged student. During an online exam, an AI proctoring system flags a student for suspicious eye movement. Now, this is what, as an educator, you would see when you go to review the student's exam. Talking to the student, they insist that their Wi-Fi lagged and they were actually just reading notes on their desk, which is allowed during the test. The system automatically invalidates the student's exam. The student contacts you, their teacher, as they believe this was unfair. Now, again, I'm going to give, maybe 5 minutes is a little too much. I'll probably give 3 minutes for everyone to kind of internalize this and try to apply the 3 principles I mentioned, fairness, transparency, and human oversight, to this situation. So the questions for discussion here really: was it fair to revoke the student's results? What could the school have done differently? And how could this system be improved? Again, here is the situation. Let's make it 1 minute. Does anyone have any ideas how you would deal with this if this situation was presented to you as an educator? Good morning. Good question. For this situation, let's say they were at home alone. I agree. Sure. Sure. Right. Yes. Great. Well, fantastic answer. There's no right answer here, but that is absolutely correct. That's certainly one way you could go about it. Having the student come in to the school to do their exam, setting them up in a situation where the chance of disruption is minimal, it's a fantastic way of approaching this. Anyone else? Any ideas around how you would go about this if this surfaced at your school? So again, there's no right answer here, but just to give you some food for thought. This is obviously a tricky situation. So you always want to believe that the student is telling the truth, but as we all know, students are students, and that's often not the case. The important thing to remember here is that the AI proctoring system is designed to detect patterns. So for anyone who's familiar with these systems, they do have false positives, and they do also flag students for things they did actually do during the test. But that being said, as was rightly pointed out, I would argue that this result is not fair. If the system did point out that the student was flagged for suspicious eye movement, but they're allowed to use notes, How can they possibly have their test failed for simply looking down for 3 to 5 seconds? Again, the AI saw suspicious eye movement. That's not hard evidence of cheating. Sorry, academic dishonesty. It's a signal. It's not a verdict. The AI system is not the judge, jury, and executioner. It is a tool for us as educators to use. The idea here, and at least how EduSync approaches this in the day-to-day, this situation actually happens all the time to us. It's a daily occurrence. The idea, at least on our side, is always presuming innocence for the student. Imagine that situation where the student is at home, perhaps in a one-family house with many people running around, unstable Wi-Fi, and they're taking a high-stakes exam. Taking tests is already a high-pressure situation, let alone when you're being monitored by your computer, let alone it being a high-stakes exam. So we've all been through situations of high-stakes exams before without having a computer monitoring us to add to the stress. So again, as educators, it's our responsibility to understand the context in which this situation is unfolding and to be able to address it as humans and not simply black and white or binary decisions of 1 and 0. In our day-to-day at EduSync, the AI is essentially a sophisticated tool that flags different behaviors. Suspicious eye movement is one of them. The tools have gotten very sophisticated, just to let all of you know. You can now see multiple faces just through a webcam. You can determine if the person is actually sitting in front of their computer or not. You can obviously detect multiple screens, multiple windows. You can even go as far as to detect different apps open on the screen automatically. ChatGPT does a great job of this. If you ever take a screenshot and send it to ChatGPT and ask it what's on my screen, it will tell you in explicit detail what is being used. It is a little scary, but again, this is the world we live in, and you need to have these rails in place, these guardrails in place for administering high-stakes exams online. But the important thing, again, fairness, transparency, and human oversight. This was clearly not fair to the student. The student also may not even know what happened, and the human oversight here was lacking as the system automatically invalidated the student's exam. So again, having those 3 pillars in mind, implementing a transparent process with someone in the loop to be able to talk to the student and explain what happened, perhaps reissue a test or bring them into a test center would certainly be, in my opinion, a better idea. Now, how to improve this system? Again, human in the loop is probably the easiest way of going about improving this. There are also more technical ways of addressing this. What is defined as suspicious eye movement? How can you allow note-taking during a test if you're also tracking their eyes? No one can take notes as they're staring at their computer. So again, simple things that perhaps were not thought through initially when the system was implemented. But again, we're not perfect. The idea is to learn from these situations and improve. So when this happened to us a few years ago, we did exactly what I'm describing. So we implemented the human-in-the-loop system. The user actually is not invalidated until someone goes and looks at their exam, can actually check for the flagged events and determine as a human being what actually happened during the test. The other option is to have an appeals process for the student. I know a lot of universities have now implemented this, where if a student feels that their exam was unfair or they were unfairly discriminated against, they can file an appeal and a formal complaint with the university, and they'll have a team of people actually go in and investigate. Again, the issue here really isn't just the flag, it's the absence of a process. It's clear that the school is trying to implement the technology and is implementing it semi-effectively, but unfortunately, in this case, it was used to replace judgment and not inform educators of how to do their jobs better. All right. Scenario 2, the essay. A good student, and by that I mean a student who has been doing well, as students do, a good student submits an essay full of advanced words and gets a high score, automatically evaluated by an AI system. The teacher uses an AI detector to check the essay. The detector flags it as 98% likely AI generated. The student insists that they only use ChatGPT for ideas. The teacher isn't sure what to do, and the school has no clear policy. Again, I'll give everybody 1 minute here just to think through this. Keep in mind fairness, transparency, and human oversight. All right, any ideas on how you would address this if this happened to you at your school? We have some questions for discussion up here that we can go through, but again, there are no wrong answers. If anyone has any ideas about how you would address this, or if you've encountered a situation like this, I'd love to hear from you. So looking at the questions for discussion here, these are fairly obvious, but just to go through each one. Should the high-scoring essay be disqualified because it was flagged? You were just discussing that, probably not. Should the student be punished or just warned? The school has no policy, so how much can we trust AI detectors anyway? That's probably the most important part of this slide, as I mentioned yesterday, but we'll dive into that. And what could the teacher or school do differently next time? So I know that the theme of this conference really is maintaining integrity, as we move forward with all these new technologies. Do any of you have a fully comprehensive AI policy in place at your school currently? Not exactly. Right. No, and a lot of schools in the U.S. are the same. A lot of exams have gone back to in-person after COVID, and obviously with all the AI tools, they've just been coming out too fast for anyone to keep up with. So, even for EduSync, the only reason that I'm aware of all these issues is because we're the ones who are making the technology. But in fact, most of the universities we work with, it's 1 or 2 departments that are using us, and most of the other ones have not yet adopted AI-powered evaluations, AI-powered systems. In fact, a lot of the schools in the US have outright banned the use of AI tools during the school day, which obviously has backfired, and you can certainly read about this if you Google it. But anyway, back to the questions for discussion here. So just to reiterate the situation here, this is a student who has routinely done well, never had any problem with academic dishonesty. They are clearly a good student, have performed well, but they've submitted this essay that has been detected as 98% AI generated. We can even say for this that there is no policy, so technically the students are allowed to use ChatGPT to generate ideas, but in good faith, you would imagine they wouldn't submit a full essay written by an AI system. Any ideas, guys? Sure. 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 Mm-hmm.
And also
That's right.
I think the reason why is that AI has language, like certain language, it's been detected by other AI products. So, and also maybe the school can come up with a policy. Okay, if we detect AI generated content, we accept only this, not then we help us.
Fantastic answer. That was yeah, absolutely. 100% correct in everything you said. And again, there is no right answer here, but it really is just a matter of how we as educators approach this problem. So you're absolutely right. The false positive problem is a very real problem. And I cannot highlight this enough because I've spoken with a lot of educators around the world who trust a lot of the detectors. And the detectors do not work. There is not one on planet Earth that is actually doing what it says it's doing. Again, you can take excerpts from any ancient text, throw them into these detectors, and almost always they will say that they were written by AI. So do not trust the AI detectors generally. Understanding that, the detectors also often penalize strong grammar and predictability. As was just mentioned, the AI systems were built as a prediction engine. That's what they're doing. When you type in a question, it's trying to guess to the highest probability what the next word should be based on your question. And as we all know, it's using the internet to do this. So it's using human products and human thought to generate what it believes it should respond. And the detectors work in a similar way. The flag alone is, in 99% of cases, not enough to disqualify. There must be some kind of verification process. The real issue here is, again, around the transparency part. Clearly this is unfair, and there's also not really any human oversight, but the transparency, I would argue, is the biggest issue here. If the system can't explain why it flags something, can we really trust its judgment? The answer is definitely not. So, again, this idea of creating some kind of policy, if we had some kind of threshold that could work, at least we have some kind of retake policy. If the student does do something that is flagged, maybe they can retake the exam in a more secure setting. That would also work. Again, there is no right answer here. But the idea really is to provide a framework and a system that allows students to take exams without fear of being penalized or disqualified unfairly. There's also this big push now, this is part of the theme of this conference, towards AI literacy. And it's important that we teach the students how to use these tools effectively. Taking a homework assignment, throwing it into ChatGPT, copying the answer and putting it into a Word document is not an effective use of AI. I'm sure all of you have used the different systems to do different things. I use it a lot to do research and to understand how the technology works, things that we're going to build for my company, things I'm curious about. I use it for all types of things. It's virtually replaced Google now in my day-to-day. But that being said, a lot of the younger generations don't really appreciate this tool for what it is, at least from the conversations I've had. And furthermore, they don't understand that on the administration side of the education system, what we're doing. So often we'll have students who, in our system on EduSync, they'll get flagged and we'll detect them using Grammarly or ChatGPT. So we've caught them being academically dishonest. And we almost always give them a second chance because whether it was intentional or not, a lot of times they were simply unaware that they were being monitored, even though there's probably 10 screens that tell them they're being monitored as they start the exam. This is the age we live in, and we can't penalize the students for their lack of understanding, at least not yet. So again, the idea really is to combine these tools with the context that we're given as educators and make the best decision both for us, our schools, our businesses, and the students. So in my example, telling the student, we've caught you using ChatGPT on your writing section, we're going to give you a 0 on the writing section, but you can take the test again. Almost all of them are eternally grateful that we don't just disqualify them outright, and they do not cheat a second time. The percentage chance of one of these users cheating a second time is less than 3% across all of the thousands of exams that we've issued on EduSync. There are some students who think they are smarter than the system, and if they get caught and they do it a second time, unfortunately, we do have to ban them, specifically for the certification exam here in Malaysia. But for those high-stakes exams, that is what is required. And the important thing is we have done all three, or checked all three boxes. The exam is fair, the process is fair, it's transparent, we're telling them why they're being penalized, and there is a human in the loop in every step of the way. One other thing I wanted to mention here. While we are constantly being overwhelmed by these AI tools and all the technologies coming out, even as you guide students and talk to them, if the school doesn't have a firm policy in place, some kind of clear AI usage guidelines can go a very long way. So even just telling students you can use it for this, you cannot use it for that, can at least give them some kind of structure and understanding of what they can and cannot do with these tools. If we don't provide some kind of framework, or at least tell them that we're aware of the problem, it will unfortunately be used, or misused rather, and it's to the student's detriment. There are also other ways that we can approach assessment generally. I mentioned this yesterday in my talk. A lot of schools, at least in the US that I've spoken to, have gone back to pen and paper tests, which I think is ironic in that we have all these sophisticated AI systems and teachers don't feel confident enough in their students to not be academically dishonest, so instead they force them to handwrite their tests. Now, I don't necessarily agree with this, but again, to each their own. Everyone knows their students best, and whatever you believe to be the best policy for your students, you can stand by. One of the things that we're encouraging our partners to do is more oral testing. So one of the earliest forms of assessment was this one-on-one, actually asking somebody questions to see how they understand. And based on their responses, you can gauge whether they've grasped a concept or not. And this is something that cannot be replaced by AI. So a lot of our partners who were previously doing multiple choice testing or computer-based testing have moved to a combination of our spoken and written tests, and then they'll actually do a 10-minute oral interview with students at some point during their assessment period. Obviously, this does add extra work for the educators, but again, I'm just giving examples of things that I've seen and how to address situations like this, things that the teacher or school could have done differently the next time. Scenario 3, this will be our last scenario for the session. A university is piloting an AI speaking assessment that scores pronunciation, fluency, and lexical range, that's vocabulary. After testing, several students with regional accents receive unexpectedly low scores, even though their teachers have previously rated them as fluent. The company selling the AI explains the model was trained mostly on American and British accents. The administration argues that since the system is objective, the results should stand. Teachers push back, saying the model is punishing diversity. Going to give everybody 1 to 2 minutes here to just go through this and think about it. I'll pull up the questions in about 30 seconds. Some questions for discussion, which I'll go through one by one, but I'll give everyone another minute or so to analyze the situation. So this one is clearly a bit more technical. But the floor is open. If anyone has any ideas or questions, there are no wrong answers. So I'll just go through, oh, please.
As Malaysia's operation, we pick our own and others like Americans, right.
Yep.
The university asked us it can be the center point for us as well as all the languages.
Right. Yep.
Maybe like
Sure.
so overall I think
Yep.
they should follow the locals.
Yes, absolutely. Great answers. Great response. Anybody else?
Thank you so much. First and foremost, we thank you. Regarding this discussion, first, we have to accept bias, which we as a law.
Yep.
I think the developers know the context for which this system was built, and the system should be able to understand the accent of a particular group of people whom it is intended for. Then, regarding the university rejecting or accepting these AI-generated scores, there's something you mentioned that some schools would actually prefer handwritten
Right.
tests and scores, and this left me thinking, why can't we have both?
Sure.
Why can't we advocate for both and compare?
Right.
Yeah, we have the AI generated scores, but then someone is for purposes of consistency and reliability, we can have handwritten scores as well and see whether those that are AI generated correspond to those that are handwritten. So I would advocate for both rather than rejecting either altogether.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Great answer.
Okay, thank you for the time. My name is from Unisa University Bali. I think we are all objectively agreed that the accent bias is a technical flaw.
Definitely.
Yes, because it's not fair to value someone's accent differently and then we judge them that they are not fluent. So we can all agree that it is a technical flaw. Regarding that is what I have in different with others, because I think that in order for this model to be better in the future, I think assessing speaking through AI, or maybe there is usually when we are assessing speaking scores, we need what's called we need a native speaker in the room to assess their speaking and listening, and what's called involving AI in this matter is actually innovational. However, there is still a long way to go, and there is still some what's called training that the AI needs to what's called to be better in assessing speaking scores for other English speakers from other nations.
Right.
Because there are many what is called dialects, and there are many accents in how they are speaking. So maybe what developers can do in the future, they should maybe increase training program, make more what's called they need to add more diversity in what's called in the speaking accents and etc.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's all. Thank you.
Great answer. Absolutely right. Fantastic answers all around, and everyone's correct. This is definitely both a technical flaw and a fairness issue. Clearly a system that determines your fluency based solely on your accent being American or British has no place evaluating spoken fluency. The university adjusting or rejecting the scores is subjective. There are certainly, I would argue that, at least in this situation, if this is an admissions test to a university, the student should likely reject the AI-generated scores unless they're paired with someone else evaluating them. So again, human oversight, right? We can't lose the base. We can't forget that, yes, the systems are there to help us as educators, but they are not the judge, jury, and executioner, and they cannot be by definition. Someone has to be involved in the process. Someone has to be overseeing the use and implementation of these systems. Now, how developers prevent this kind of bias is something that I actually have personal experience with. Over the years, we have been able to train our model with accents from around the world. So our focus, at least at my company, is not on testing if you speak American English or British English, which there are certainly exams and companies that specialize in that. And perhaps, if you were applying to work for customer service at Walmart in the US on the phone, maybe they would want you to have an American accent. And the models can be tweaked to train for that and to assess for that. But as far as a general model for testing fluency, accent is only one component. So using multiple accents in your training data can really help diversify the system itself and have it understand that Malaysian accent, Indian accent, Thai accent, all of these accents, you can still have a high rate of fluency even if you have an accent. So a lot of the work that we did early on actually in Latin America was with Brazilian users who have also very specific and different accents. And the way that we assessed, or I guess addressed this problem was, again, training the system on models from around the world and really focusing on the ability to communicate. And sure, that can also be subjective, but there are some objective ways to determine if someone communicates well. And you can use any type of pronunciation for certain words. I mean, we have 5 or 6 different variations of types of pronunciation for certain words that are still marked as correct or high scoring, as long as in the context of your entire submission, it makes sense. So again, the focus on communication and communicability as opposed to are you speaking English like an American or like someone from England can make all the difference. And again, just to really hit this point home, obviously if you're doing large quantities of testing, as we are, you can't have a human being review each and every case. But you can have systems in place that flag certain aspects of user submissions to alert the team that someone needs to come in and review this. And yes, this is obviously a complex subject that I could probably talk about for another 5 hours, but the idea really is that having a human in the loop and having systems in place to adhere to those three pillars, fairness, transparency, and human oversight, can allow you to avoid ruining someone's life just because the system evaluated them as not fluent because of their accent. Another thing that's important to mention for the more technical people out there is having feedback loops in your development process. So you can't just build something, deploy it, and claim it to be done. Technology is a constant work in progress. As the systems get better, as your understanding of the systems get better, your solution gets better. But that only happens if you're willing to continuously make mistakes and learn from them, and then implement what you've learned into your system. It took us probably 12 or 13 different iterations of our AI system before we got it right. And getting it right is not getting it 100% correct. The most recent efficacy study we did for our placement test had a 96% accuracy to within half a CEFR band, for those who are in the English training world, for students, which is exceptionally high for an AI system. But again, it's not 100%, and it will never be 100%, which is very important to mention as we all experiment with these tools moving forward. The hybrid scoring model also is something that I think can be highlighted here. Using AI for consistency, humans for context, I think is a very powerful tool. Again, operating at scale, you can't have human beings analyzing each and every exam on the system, but you can have a system in place so that they're alerted when they need to be to review edge cases and potential issues with tests as they're submitted. We also use our partners as bias auditors. So we'll actively show the results of our exams to our partners who are issuing the tests. And if they identify areas where the AI has misjudged or misscored, we incorporate that feedback into the next iteration of our system. So it is essentially a very large-scale trial and error platform, but the idea being to use this feedback in the wild and from real people to improve how the system works. So again, these were just three scenarios. We face different ones every day, and the real thing I want to hit home is this three-pillared approach to implementing these systems in your day-to-day. Fairness, transparency, and human oversight. If you keep these three in mind, it will be very hard to put a system in place that will be detrimental to your students and you as an educator. But again, three things to remember. AI can help, but it's not magic. As was mentioned before, AI is artificial intelligence. It was trained on human intelligence. So we are the ones who must stay in control. Again, it can help, but it's not designed to be an end-all, be-all solution. Humans must stay in the loop, always, even if it's not 100% of the time, as long as there is some kind of feedback process in place. You can rest assured that students will be happier, administrators will be happier, teachers will be happier, and everyone will be happier. And last but not least, fairness isn't automatic. It is intentional. It must be designed intentionally and implemented intentionally in your day-to-day. It would be very easy, and it is very easy for a lot of companies out there, at least in this AI world, to say that the AI does everything better than humans, and that's it. Simply not the case. And as educators, as I mentioned yesterday, we are the last line of defense from the AI systems, for the students. So the idea is, as we build and implement these tools, and as they get more sophisticated, we must also get more sophisticated with how we're using them. So just keep that in mind as you're exploring, that fairness should always be top of mind and always be looked at as the objective as you're looking to implement these tools in your day-to-day. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sean, for that insightful presentation. So we will now open the floor for questions, perhaps maybe one or two questions only. Anyone?
Hello, Sean. Hi. Can you say something about who must be able to do let us know something on how to train these proctors
Sure.
working with the system while the students are sitting for the exam?
Right. So, great question. So, we have a few different ways of doing this, and it really depends on the product and the partner we're working with. So, for the work we do with ELTC here in Malaysia, for everyone who's unaware of this, one of our exams, called the CEFR level test, has been approved by the Ministry of Education for certifying teachers' English levels. So you can go to our website, buy an exam for 120 ringgit, take a test, and get your English certified with ELTC and the Ministry of Education here. Now, for these tests, we actually have humans in the loop in many different parts of the exam. So the evaluations for these exams are not actually AI powered. These are human evaluated. So our team of certified English teachers, primarily based in the US and UK, are the ones who actually will go in and score the tests. We do have internal systems in place that they can use to check their work, bounce their ideas off of other evaluators, but for the most part, those are primarily entirely human-based. For the proctoring, which is the most interesting part of this, every exam that we administer here is proctored. So students will take a photo of themselves, take a photo of their ID, scan their room, and then we monitor their webcam, monitor them through their webcam, and we monitor their screen as they take their exam. The AI system in place for this is just there to flag different events that occur during the test. The system will never fail the user by itself. So at no point, even if you are using ChatGPT next to your exam, we still let the user finish their test. Only after, once the system has flagged that this user likely did something they should not have done, will a human being go in and then invalidate the test. As I mentioned yesterday, we don't like to say, our job is not to catch students cheating, it's to stop them from going down the path of academic dishonesty before they do. And to do that, the human in the loop is crucial. So having someone there to review the test, even if we know that they were blatantly academically dishonest, we are able to use a human being to validate this and only then tell the student. And even then, if we do catch someone who's done something that we know was not allowed, we still give them a second chance. So if we catch someone using Grammarly on their writing section, which happens often, we'll zero their writing section after someone validates this, and we message them saying, unfortunately, we caught you using Grammarly. It's not allowed to be used in the test, but if you want to retake the exam, you can purchase another one, and we'll combine your best scores. So you don't lose your whole exam. You still get to keep your reading, listening, and speaking scores, but you have to redo the test because this was not allowed. So having that two-strike policy also has greatly benefited the students, the test takers, because they don't just burn their money if we do catch them doing something they're not allowed to do, but it's all taken into context. So there's a human being is there to analyze what's happened and then give the final judgment as opposed to letting the AI do it.
Thank you, Mr. Sean.
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, our session has come to an end. I would like to express my gratitude to Mr. Sean Kilichen for sharing his valuable insights in our masterclass session today. Let's give him a collective round of applause.
Thank you.
You may now be seated. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now continuing with the session with the best practices session by Dr. Tamrong Ratnaparnudet. Dr. Tamrong Ratnaparnudet is the Dean of Stanford International University, Thailand. He holds a doctorate in education, higher education, from Chulalongkorn University. With over 25 years of experience in teaching, research, and institutional administration, Dr. Tamrong has held various key positions such as Dean of Faculty Director of Student Affairs Office and Director of the President's Office. Dr. Tamrong has made significant contributions to the field of higher education in Thailand. Without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Tamrong Ratanapurnudet to share his thoughts. Please welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Morning. Hope everybody fine, and I'm so happy to be here with you, and very happy to be part of this important